Congratulations. So exciting. Oh my gosh, she's so big. I know. I remember when you guys were pregnant. And I didn't hear you, Christine. What did you say? Okay.
I was checking if we could hear you. Can you hear me on the mic? Can you hear me if I'm talking on the mic? I did. Eleanor, can you hear me?
I cannot hear you, Christine. I know you're talking, but I can't hear what you're saying.
Okay, 1 minute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask you that if you want to add to the conversation, whatever, just kind of give me a wave so we can see you out of the corner of my eye. Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Alrighty. Thank you, everyone, for your patience. Terribly sorry. We had a very important executive session, and I appreciate your patience. So the meeting will come to order. Please join me in standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. For everyone in attendance, just so we know, emergency exits are behind us, and then, of course, out either side here. When you go out the main doors here to the left. Alrighty, recognition of visitors. Board of Education welcomes comments from the public. Each person wishing to speak is asked to identify themselves and respectfully limit their comments to 3 minutes. Anybody have any comments? In the interest of time? Okay, thank you. Alrighty, let's go into committee updates. Can we start with Board Policy Committee? Christian.
So the Board Policy Committee hasn't met yet. I was waiting on some things. The letter is drafted, and we plan to meet before the end of the month. Do you want me to do audit as well?
Sure, go ahead with audit.
The Audit Committee is meeting on September 17th to review our external and internal audit, and we plan on making a recommendation to the board for the September 22nd meeting.
Thank you very much. Facilities Committee meeting. Jim?
Thank you. Yes, we had a meeting, I don't have the date in front of me, but 2-3 weeks ago. Main topics of discussion were 3 larger projects, two major topics. One were 3 larger projects that we are considering, and then timing of our upcoming capital bond. So maybe I'll work second first. I guess they go hand in hand, so I'll tackle them both at the same time. The 3 major projects that are under consideration to be potentially included in a capital project, yet no decision from the committee, but we decided that plans were close enough to work on getting costs, so we could consider whether or not we want to include them, and then present that to the entire board, who obviously will approve any potential future project. Those 3 projects, one is mandatory per state ed, which is bathrooms and concession area by the new high school stadium. We didn't have the funds to do that last time. We need to do that to get any other state ed funding for capital projects, so we will be pursuing that project. We were discussing plans there. The other 2 projects are a potential kiss and ride loop, if you want to call it that, behind the middle school to change the drop off there. So buses would be in front of the school and cars would be behind, come in off of Lee Road and loop around the existing football field track there. With that project, there's going to be need for some extensive earthworks, and it was decided that the seeker would not be able to be completed by November, December to try and put a bond vote before the community this fall, which we had discussed as a possibility. If we do have a bond vote, we would current thinking is it would be in conjunction with the May budget vote. And then the third project would be an expansion of the middle school for a new cafeteria and food prep area. The kitchen area is in dire need of repairs, both in functionality as well as structurally underneath. So we approved those 3 projects, approved them in terms of getting them costed out. Next meeting will be 3 weeks from tonight, Monday the 29th, at the high school at 6 p.m. And there we will be discussing what came back from the building conditions survey, which was completed in the spring, and comparing that to our current list of projects for the district. And, you know, there's going to be obviously a lot of overlap, things that we already knew about, and see what additions are there. And then we'll start the rest of the fall getting work together on trying to prepare a capital project to present to the full board, ultimately to ask for the voters' approval. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Communications Committee, Brendan.
Have not met yet. I've been speaking with our other committee members about establishing a date to have recurring meetings. So I know you wanted to change this year to really schedule them all out in advance, so which is a great idea. So we will have our first meeting definitely by the end of September, probably in the next few weeks, and then I'll have that scheduled for you so that we can get that up on the district website as well. And I would also add, and this is to the members and kind of just a public call, we will be looking for members of the public as well to join. And I say public, that could also mean other members within the district as well. So that request will be made more formally after we meet, but just want to put that out there in case, you know, for all of our tens of listeners, if they want to throw their hat in the ring.
They don't need special permission. They can just show up.
I will formalize the way that we'll intake that, but certainly they could also just show up, yes.
Thank you. And our last one is visitation. Carl?
How you doing? Last week we met, last Wednesday we met, we discussed some visitation, building of relationships and school liaisons. We had a great time. I think that the committee is going to be looking real good. And we are going to set up a meeting with Megan, Christine and I, and that's it.
And then we have Oxba, Christian.
So Ms. Diaz and I attended the last Oxfam meeting, which I believe was September 4th? Last Wednesday. The major things to report, there was a presentation from the ADAC of Orange County, which I believe stands for Alcohol and Drug Awareness Council. Did I get it right? Of Orange County, and they presented to us a variety of different mental health resources that are available to districts as well as anyone living in Orange County. I think that we have partnered with them on other things in the past, and they kind of, in a sense, just extended an arm to be assistance to school districts. And there was a little bit of discussion of what they're seeing mental health-wise among students, but also in terms of things such as alcohol and drug use and abuse. And they also mentioned the upcoming NISBA convention, which is coming up in October. And I think that was the thrust of the meeting.
Thank you. Legislative, anything, Jim?
There was a meeting that NISBA put on virtually with a representative from Representative Ryan's office, Pat Ryan's office, which I attended. There's maybe 5 people there in the room with me. Took some notes, emailed them out to the board. Nothing super significant, but yeah.
Thank you for attending. Richard, anything from NISBA?
Yeah, so I just signed up to attend the annual business meeting on Thursday, October 16th. Just for the new board members, Bass was our former NISBA representative, and I think the way he did it worked well, and if it's not broke, don't fix it. So be on the lookout for an email from me probably within the week with either a Google spreadsheet or Excel sheet where you can vote either yes or no on the propositions, and I will represent the board's majority on how you feel on those propositions. So just be on the lookout for that. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Can I?
Yeah.
What's the schedule on that? When are they? They've already released what the
Mhm.
topics are.
Yeah.
Just today?
Yeah.
And when is the tally going to be due by?
Well,
You know, I'm sorry, I don't wanna put you on the spot.
No. I mean, the
I mean-
meeting's October 16th, so I would probably like it at least a week beforehand.
yeah.
I'll put that in my email
Yeah,
once I
cool.
look at the calendar and, whatever it takes, but thank you.
Richard, I
Yeah.
can make a comment on that, and I said this to you privately, but some other districts post the votes of the board members on the NISBA resolutions, just as a measure of accountability, but also you see how people, what positions they take on, and people see what NISBA is and what they're voting on. I think it would be maybe interesting to follow that practice, but that, I'll leave it up to the board as a whole to decide whether that's advisable.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's worth a discussion if the board wants to do that, or, yeah, that should be up to the board as a whole. But I'd be for that.
Thank you. Okay, did I miss anything? Anyone? Committees? Okay, great. So let's move on to our consent agenda. Before we get started, I need approval to add item number 10 to our consent agenda. Could I have a motion to approve the resolution? Be it resolved, the board authorizes the board president and interim district superintendent to communicate the determination of the board to the Teachers Association regarding the Stage 3 grievance brought by the Cornwall Teachers Association. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Christian, can I have a second?
I will second that motion to amend the consent agenda at item number 10.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, so adding item number 10 to our consent agenda, we have items 1 through 10. Is there anything anyone would like pulled from the consent agenda?
Do we need to vote to amend?
You need to vote to add it.
Oh, sorry. Could I have a vote to pass the motion to add the number 10 to the agenda? All in
Aye.
favor? The motion passes. Thank you. Now, would anyone like to pull anything from the consent agenda for discussion?
I would like to pull number 7 and number 10.
Anyone else? Okay, so I need to get approval on the consent agenda for numbers 1 through 6, 8, and 9. Could I please have a motion to approve those numbers on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Brendan with the motion, and may I have a second? Carl with the second. All in favor of approving the consent agenda items 1 through 6, 8, and 9?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion passes. Thank you. We've pulled number 7 and number 10. Resolution to approve funding of the capital reserve. Can I have a motion to,
Ms. Diaz, if I may, can we consider 10 first, because I pulled that simply for the purpose of voting individually on that? So it doesn't require any discussion, at least not from me, the person who pulled it.
so you want to do a roll call vote? Is that what you're asking for?
I think I did not pull it for discussion. I pulled it simply to had to vote.
Okay.
So if people, ayes,
All right,
nays, and
could I have a motion, please, for agenda item number 10?
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Brendan. A second. All in favor of resolution for item number 10? Show of hands, please. So please note, we have Lofton, Jamie, Carl, Brendan, and Christine, and Jim. All opposed? Please note, we have Richard and Christian.
And Eleanor.
Oh, Eleanor, I'm so sorry. Thank you. All right, the motion passes. Thank you. So item number 7, may I have a motion for the resolution to approve funding of capital reserve number 3? Jim with the motion. May I have a second?
Second.
Brendan with a second. Discussion? Christian?
So I've said this in the past 2 years. We made a similar motion about funding the capital reserve. And, I understand that this money has to be allocated. I question the advisability of allocating the entire balance to the capital reserve itself. because by allocating it, we are actually making a spending decision to allocate this money that can't be spent in any other way. And my preference would be, first of all, to fund the unemployment insurance reserve up to the recommended level. And I would also think would be more advisable, especially given what budget we probably will face in the upcoming year, to keep that money and use it to return it to the taxpayers, which would be one other way we could deal with this money in an effort to defend our program, as opposed to allocating it to spend on a larger capital project. And I would also say that even though there is a 4% limit, according to at least the last comptroller's report that I've seen, between 55 and 60% of the school districts have more than their 4% limit. And I am not aware that there has been any penalty. While I realize that the auditors will probably not like the fact that we're above that, it is not uncommon for people to do it. And at least in the short term, I doubt that the state would take any action, especially because part of the excess is because the state passed its budget after school districts passed their budget, which means there was going to be an excess built in anyway because there was more money given to us by the state than what we budgeted. So my preference here would be, well, I will probably be voting against this resolution, and I would rather keep this money to defend our program, especially in the context and discussion of the previous budget. We were often told how things were unaffordable, that we eliminated the total number of teaching positions in the district, that we did not support a strategic plan that was in our board goals from past years, and perhaps, you know, all of a sudden, once again this year, we found we have $2 million above and beyond the churn, which, roughly speaking, is about levying about $7.7 million over 4 years, more than we spent in the regular program budget. And I realize I'm not being exact in some of those terms, but I think that if we're not going to spend the money on the program, then perhaps we should consider, given that we might have a difficult budget season in terms of revenues, to keep at least some of that money available for that purpose, even more so than normal, and not necessarily instead spend that money by putting in the capital reserve. I will just say the last thing on this is that we have done this kind of in an odd fashion, which is usually when you do a capital project, you pass a resolution and then you raise taxes to fund the capital resolution going forward, which means that you go to the community and say, we need to do these capital projects and let's vote on it, and this is what we include on it, and therefore you agree to a higher taxes, or higher levy rather, instead of, let's say, raising the money beforehand and saying, oh, well, since we already got the money from you, it'll be tax neutral going forward because we've already, in a sense, levied that amount and then use that toward our capital project. This is a point that I've made before, but that's how and I've said this on previous resolutions of this sort, but I still think that that would be more advisable.
Just a couple of points
Brendan?
to clarify on that. So just on that last point, the way that we're going about it being different than the way that other capital projects are typically run, where you put it to the voters and then you raise the money through taxes. I will remind you that, and anybody listening, that the last 2 times that we tried that path, those bonds were voted down. The one time that we have tried this alternate path, which is to have the voters approve of a capital reserve fund, fund it, then put a capital project with 0 tax increase, that has been successful. So I think that logic would dictate that if we're going to pursue a second capital project, we would take the path that has been successful. You mentioned that we are putting this money into this reserve fund and then going to the voters. Another reminder, the capital reserve fund is established by a vote from the community. We have approved over the years 3 capital reserve funds. All of them have been overwhelmingly supported by the community. I think implicit in that vote is the public's expectation that we will fund that capital reserve fund, and it has been part of that plan that I mentioned before of putting capital projects before the community with 0 tax increase. To your initial point, I'm very sympathetic to that idea of keeping money aside for academic programming, particularly if we feel like we're entering what could be a challenging budget season. But for this year in particular, we know that there will be parts of the capital project that are unaidable. In fact, those parts are the parts that some of those parts are the ones that we have to include in this capital project in order to be approved by state ed. I won't go into the details. I'm sure you're aware of them yourself. So I think there's a lot of nuance to this move in this year that makes it more sensible to put as much money into the capital reserve fund this year as possible. Although I will say in ensuing years, I would agree that having a judicious approach to how much we put into the capital reserve fund is warranted. But this year, I think full steam ahead is the wiser course.
Other comments? Jim?
I just want to get, I think, clarity, Christian, on one thing you said, that you wanted to give this money back to the taxpayers and save it for programming. Was that a different suggestion than just holding over 4%, or you're saying by holding over 4% we are saving for program, or were those two different? I'm trying to get clarity on your comment because I didn't fully understand it.
So my understanding, and I'll defer to Mr. Fink on this, if I'm not understanding this correctly, what we need to do is when we go over 4% is have a plan to spend that overage. Legitimate spending could be putting into reserve because we've decided to spend it by saying this money should be allocated toward the capital reserve and how much should be put to the capital reserve from that overage. We could put it into other reserve funds as well. There's no necessity that it goes into one particular place. One of the things we can do is, in a sense, hey, we levied more than we needed, let us return it to the taxpayers in the next budget season. And by doing that, we would lower the tax levy effectively by, in a sense, adding this in addition to whatever is the allocated fund balance in the next budget, which would then, let's say, make it cheaper and give us more ability to support programs if that money is not coming from the state, or the money from the state is not as generous, and therefore the increase in, let's say, the cost of our programs increases, but we don't get the same increase from the state. I think that gives us more flexibility, and that would be my personal preference, but other people might have different preferences about how this money is spent. Because once you put it into a reserve fund, it is hard to claw it out.
No,
because
I
as you know,
understand that. It's always been my understanding that if it's over the 4%, we will put aside the argument of can you hold more than 4% and how many people do it, and will state ed slap your hand if you do, because we know the answer is a lot of people do it, and state ed's never said anything, but you're not supposed to. But putting that argument aside, it's always been my understanding that you have to allocate it to a reserve fund, that you can't just allocate it to the next year's general fund. I would love to get Mr. Fink's thoughts on that issue.
That is correct. They have to be allocated to our reserves. So I'm not positive, Christian, when you say that you want to put it towards the voters again, would that be reducing the appropriated fund balance, in which case we use appropriated fund balance about $2.4 million to reduce the levy. Would we use this 2.6 to reduce it further? I don't know if we can do that, and I would have to check with the auditors, and they can answer that question for us next week. And I can assure you, we are not holding more than 4%.
this is not about, so just to be clear, I'm not accusing anyone of putting money in the wrong place. And the point about for the auditors, they want to know what this money is going towards, right? And putting in the capital reserve is one way to say we have made a plan for how this money will be used. My understanding is based upon reading the controllers about what happens on the overages, a controller's report from a few years back about the different options that are available to a school district if they end up having more than their 4%. And it seemed fairly clear to me, but I will admit that I am not an expert on this, and I will defer to your judgment, that it is possible if you initially say, look, we have this extra money, we're basically going to use it and return it because we levied more than was necessary. We always budget more than we spend for obvious reasons, because we don't know, we only have one revenue point, or we only have one major revenue point, and we have many different expenses, some of which we don't know at the beginning of the year or when we budget. So it is not unnatural that we are going to have an overage. The question is what we do with that overage, and obviously we have prudently allocated that to funds, both yourself and Mr. Sutland before you, and as you noted in our memo, a lot of our reserve funds are well capitalized, if that's the correct term. And I think we are in good shape over it. However, I am concerned that there are other things that we might want to be more cautious about, and that explains my own personal preference. Now, as I said, that's one preference. The board will take a vote about the prudence of that.
John, may I ask a question? If I remember last year, so we have this extra money. Our options are to put it in a reserve, or it has to go into the fund balance. We can't go back and now say we want to do strategic planning and hire someone. Like, I feel like we had that conversation when we weren't sure what the state was giving us.
So that's correct. So I think there's a little bit of confusion being talked about. One of our revenue sources for the 25-26 school year. So the state came back and said, we're going to get, I think it was $100,000 more, or thereabouts for the 25-26 school year. That's not received yet. So that's not included in what you are seeing here. That will be received in the 25-26 school year and be allocated in our fund balance next year. So a year from now, we will be dealing with that money when we come full circle here. So that's a great clarification that we did discuss.
Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
I want to echo Brendan's statement, that the voters obviously approved this capital fund balance, and with proposed capital project coming up this year, I think it is prudent to put this money in the capital reserve fund number 3, as Mr. Fink has recommended to us as a board. I would like clarification, though, for next year, if we can take any unallocated funds and not necessarily put them in a reserve fund, but put them in allocate them to the next year's budget. That'd be an interesting question for clarification, because that's always been my understanding, that that's not allowed. But for tonight, I am in favor of this resolution.
Thank you. Other questions, comments before we take a vote? Okay, all in favor of resolution to approve funding for capital budget, of capital reserve number 3? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so Eleanor, I didn't see yours, I'm sorry, in favor?
She was opposed.
Opposed? Okay, so that is 7-2,
Nope.
I'm not good with math, but, okay. 7-2, the motion passes, thank you. Thank you, everyone. So now we're moving on to the non-consent agenda, and our first topic of discussion is our board goals. And I'd like to approach this a little differently this year. I think that, let me just get out my papers here. What I've done is I have a packet for everyone. If you don't mind just taking and passing that to that side. And I think there's enough for everyone. If I miscalculated, please share. So the one document you have is just a reminder of what our board goals, what our district goals. So we received Megan's draft. We will discuss those at another time. She's fine-tuning some of those details, but they certainly fall into the part that comes under district goals. And then we have the section that is board goals, and there are certain things specifically, and I thank Christian for helping to qualify the categories. I did such a good job of taking notes and being prepared, and now Christian helped me to qualify the categories that most of these fall into. So I had sent him a bunch of brainstormed ideas and said, what do you think? And he very quickly was able to say, well, they look like they fall into these 5 headings. So we have facilities, instruction, governance, culture outreach, finance, budget. So thank you for that, because that was very helpful. So then what I did was I took those 5 headers, and I looked at the New York State Board Association and the National Board Association, and looked at, what's the call to action for Board of Education related to those categories. And I came up with, I didn't come up with them alone, I did some research, some potential goals that fall into these categories. These are not intended to be, Christine, set your goals. This is not intended to be the be-all, end-all. This is a starting point for our discussion. So I'm going to try to talk loudly, and I just want to show you what our next step is going to be. Okay. Well, Eleanor too, so hopefully she can hear me, right? Because Eleanor, you're going to take this journey with me. I'm going to carry you around with me. So what I did was I have on each of these flip charts, there's 5 of them that are posted around here, and each of them has one of these headings: governance, finance, facilities. And then, as I mentioned, there are some thought starters of some goals that are listed there. And I've also included the NISBA standard and the New York State standard that would support that, so that it's not just willy-nilly what we came up with. And the instructions are there in front of you, what the next steps are. You're going to pair up into groups of 2. I have stickers for you, and I have markers for you. And the task is that you have 2 stickers per flip chart. So you get to vote on 2 of these items that you think, that's the one we should really be fine-tuning, or that's the one we should use. You are also free to add other, so you can add an additional one if you feel like, she missed this entirely, we need to get X, Y, Z up here. You can edit one that's up there. Maybe you like half of it, but you want to change the other half. So we are going to go through, everyone's going to rotate. I'm going to call time. I'm going to have 3 to 5 minutes, so we're going to move quickly, but I want to make sure you have the time to go through it. Once everyone's been through all 5 flip charts, I've asked Jamie to help me. We are going to debrief and just kind of give you a recap of what we see on the flip charts. And then we will take it back, and I will consolidate the notes, consolidate your votes, your thinking. I'll send that back out to the board, and then hopefully we have enough consensus around it that at our next meeting we can do a final vote and have a consensus on our board goals. Questions? Clarification needed? No, not right now. Okay, so why don't we have Jim and Lofton, if you guys don't mind going around together. I'm going to try to pair up folks that don't necessarily work together all the time, or maybe newer. And we'll have, how about we have Richard and Brendan? We can have Carl. Do you want to come around with Eleanor and I, or you could go Jamie? Okay, why don't we have Jamie, Christian, and Carl go together? Is that good, Christian, for you? Is that good? And then I'll go with Eleanor. Actually, Eleanor, I'm going to email you the document, and we'll just do it online between us, okay? So why don't we have group 1 start here? You can designate who's group 1. Oh, thank you. Hold on.
There's not 4.
Right, you have 2 stickers between you that hopefully you then would. Eleanor, just give me 1 minute to get you the email, okay? So Eleonora, I just sent you the email. I just sent you the email with what is on top of each of these charts. So if you want to look at those, you can even just type in there your feedback and give me like the highlight of the two that you like. And then of course I could always follow up with you after for any clarification if that works. Okay?
You guys have 1 minute and 20 seconds.
Christine, I don't have an email from you.
I'm trying again, 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, Jamie's group are overachievers, so they're gonna get gold stars over here. They've already moved to their next one. Everybody else needs to move. So Jim and Lofton, you guys have to pop to the next one.
I just resent it, so give it a minute.
Two-minute warning.
Did it come through, Eleonora? Did it come through? Okay, great. If you don't have enough time, I can circle back with you after too.
Yeah, I'm reading them. I most likely won't finish it.
That's
but
fine,
I'm
that's fine. I
going through it.
figure, because you're not
Okay.
working with a partner and all that, but yeah, that's good. So I was just eavesdropping a little bit on this conversation here, and I bring up a really good point. These do not include KPIs or sort of like how we measure, did we actually do that? And I think that maybe becomes part of the next phase. So make a note there that's like, well, I like it, but, so if that matters for that, if it matters for the statement, feel free to do that.
Okay, finished up your last thought on that one. You guys have 5 seconds, and then you'll move up. Just kidding, there's a timer. One minute. Brendan, I think you're the last group. Yeah, I just wanted to note that. You have 2 minutes.
Eleonora, if you want, we're gonna go through these and like kind of give a recap of what got the votes here and stuff. So if you just want to kind of make note of that, and this way, if you want to do something different or whatever, it just might help our discussion be easier for you and I, you know.
Okay.
Okay, great. You guys are super fast. Thank you. So what Jamie and I are going to do is we're just going to go around and give a very high-level overview of where the most votes landed. And one of the things I probably should have done that I didn't think of was I maybe should have just had a blank page to say, what did we miss overall? So at the very end, if there's something that you're thinking, like, listen, I don't see this anywhere, we'll have a moment to capture that as well. Again, I don't mean to insinuate this is the be-all, end-all. So when we look at the finance budget category, overwhelmingly, we have aligned budget with student achievement priorities, ensure financial decisions directly support instructional programs, equity, and student success. And the note is made to make sure we're doing that with metrics. And then somebody added one here, which is great, budget according to a strategic plan, allow for long-term planning for multi-year initiatives. So those are the two that got the most votes from the group. So we'll dig a little deeper into those before the next meeting.
All right, instruction. Can you guys hear me? I always feel so weird talking in a microphone. Great. The two that got the most votes, the first is advanced student achievement and equity. So ensure instructional programs are designed to raise achievement and close opportunity gaps. The second is use data to drive instructional improvement, monitor students' performance data to identify needs, inform instruction, and evaluate program effectiveness. A third was added at the bottom, which is UPK, so we'll add that into our discussion.
So here we have facilities, and we know this is a hot topic for us. So the two of them that are on the top are promote fiscal responsibility and capital planning, oversee long-term capital planning, ensuring fiscal responsibility in facility maintenance, construction, and modernization. That's like a whole ball of wax, right? And then foster community engagement in facilities decisions. So involve stakeholders in facilities planning, including parents, staff, and community members to ensure transparency and support. I feel like these have been on our goals year over year, maybe just said a little differently. So we'll look at some of what's been said in the past and fine tune it a little and get some input from the facilities committee as well, but those are the two that rose to the top.
So in culture and outreach, there's a three-way tie, which I don't think is surprising at all. So the first one is support building an inclusive school culture, promote equity, diversity, and inclusion in all schools by ensuring that every student, family, and staff member feels respected, valued, and supported. Second is strengthen family and community engagement, develop stronger partnerships with parents, caregivers, and community organizations to support student learning and well-being, both inside and outside the classroom, and enhance communication and transparency, ensure consistent, accessible, and multilingual communication across all channels to keep families and stakeholders informed and engaged. I'm also going to note, because it was my group, we picked to add number 4 into number 2 because I think they kind of are one and the same and can work together. So number 4 was expand partnerships and community resources, leverage relationships with local businesses, nonprofits, and higher education institutions to provide mentorship, internship, and enrichment opportunities for students. So I think there's a way to just make that a larger community outreach discussion.
And the last one, excuse me, is governance. So the one that got the most support was support strategic planning and long-term sustainability, ensure decisions are grounded in data, fiscal responsibility, and community input, with a focus on long-term student success and organizational sustainability, and another note about metrics needed. So these are like the overarching themes, but we have to drill down into what do we really want to look at. And then the second one is strengthen policy development and oversights, ensure all district policies are clear, up to date, and aligned with state and federal regulations, regularly review and evaluate the effectiveness of policies to support academic excellence, equity, and safe learning environments, update as necessary. So, okay, I'm going to turn this off because
That's it.
If I can just hop in with a brief comment, just Jamie, to your point, Lofton and I thought, so number 2, you have to refresh me, eyesight's not that good, but number 2 was to just
Do you want me to
improve, like number 3 was to improve communication and outreach, and number 2 was to make sure that families feel more connected, and I'm forgetting the exact verbiage, but
It was strengthen family and community engagement. So
we
yeah.
thought that 2 was an outcome of 3, so we voted for 3 in that we thought 3 was like the direct action and 2 would be the outcome of 3. So we're kind of in the same camp as you in that, you know.
I think we all
I
had a
think
tough
there-
time with this
yeah.
one.
I think there's a connection there.
Yeah, and to that point, Jim, Richard and I found ourselves kind of leaning towards things that were more specific, that felt like goals as opposed to, and we didn't say this, but the way I look at it, goals that we can achieve versus ideas or virtues we support. You know, like, I think that we all support everything that's on here, but is that a goal? Is that something that we can look at the end of the year and say we furthered that particular goal? So in the interest of like when metrics and we added like sub goals, it was just from our view, it's like, love it, but in some cases we'll just need to make it specific so that it's something that we as a board can achieve.
how do we know we were successful at the end of the year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So part of my thinking about looking at this is just these are board goals. And there are things the board can do and the things the board can't do. And if we just take the standard divide between we set values, we set policy, we allocate resources, we don't run the school district. So when you talk about an inclusive school, I think that's very desirable, but we don't run the school. We're 9 people, so we are not going to actually do anything at the school level. What we can do is make ourselves more accessible to the community. We can make efforts to reach out to the community and listen, right? But we're not actually we're not on the day-to-day of the school. So I tended to favor things that were about allocating resources or how our process, our governance process works would be at the core, and some of the things that I think are completely desirable, but just not in the board's competence or in the board's role. And that's kind of how I looked at some of the things that I think were great, just not for us to do.
Yeah, I think it's important to say that I don't know that the thought starters that were here were intended to be the final goal, or to your point, Christian, that we don't have direct oversight over that. But if this is a priority for us, we can then go back to what resources are needed, how do we support administration in getting that done. So I think we're on the same page, and I tried to really make sure we were focused on things that the board had oversight or could influence more so than what's really the administration's role. So thank you for clarifying that. Other thoughts or questions? Anything not up here or in the 5 categories that you were surprised we didn't see it, or you think, we missed it and we need to capture that somewhere?
I don't have an addition, but I do have gratitude towards you, Christine, because you did this in a different way, and I think it was a successful way to approach and to work our way through at least the first sift of this process.
Thank you.
I would echo that, and then I will add something that I think we could add. Just about formalizing a bit of how standards for how we are going to operate. I know there are some specifics about adding an extra retreat There's been discussion on, the board self-evaluation. There do seem to be some specifics that we could add that would be in the interest of board operation, however we want to title it, but that seems like it would be worthy to pursue.
So can you just, like, not that I'm holding you to it, but like, you said board retreat, like what else comes to mind?
Board retreat, self-evaluation. I know last year we at our retreat, we spent time on, operating guidelines, principles. I forget exactly what we call them. We could add that as another deliverable. Again, all of this would be discussed and voted on, but as far as what are the options for metrics and deliverables, I think those are three, and usually three is enough. So
I'm going to ask if other people have other things, but my intent is to take what you guys have voted on and what you've done and the feedback you've given and try to consolidate a little bit. And even to Christian's point, like if it's something that it's more of an output of supporting, make that identifier for everybody and then circulate them back out to you so that we have something more concrete next time to talk about and vote on. But is there anything else that was missing that, or that you would add to Brendan's list of standards we want to formalize? And this isn't your last option to talk. I want to get it before we leave. Okay, great. Thank you so much for putting your time and energy into that. Now we have time for public comments number 2. Okay, the one person in the audience is not interested. I do have one comment to make, though, if you will let me. So we were in executive session for quite a while today, and we were late to our meeting. And I just want to acknowledge that Mr. Keith Baisley, who was approved tonight as our technology integration specialist at CCMS and CCHS, he's returning to our district, so we want to welcome him back. He was here for the appointment, and I'm really sorry that we took so long, that we missed you. But we're really excited to have you back. Congratulations. And then Michelle McCoy also. She's our new CSE chairperson that we have. That's through the state, right? Yeah. So that's part of our state grant that we got. We're thrilled to have more support in our CSE division. And again, terribly sorry we weren't here to meet you or to congratulate you in person. That's never our intention. And we will look for you the next time we're in the building to stop by and say hello. So congratulations and thanks for coming out. Just sorry we took a while. So with that, could I please have a motion to adjourn our meeting? Carl with a motion. Can I have a second? Richard with a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion passes. Have a good evening, everyone. Eleanor. He shut me off already. Eleanor, I'm going to follow up with you in an email afterwards, okay?